Mr. Ben.
How you doing, man?
How's it going?
Pretty good. Moving along through North Texas.
Yeah?
Yep.
And how far are we going?
We'll be heading towards Denver, Colorado. We still will clear out of Texas into the northeast corner of New Mexico.
Yeah.
And then we'll head up into Colorado and straight north into Denver, Colorado.
Shit, yeah. Well, thanks for bringing me and Patrick along for the ride.
Yeah, man. No problem. Glad to have y'all.
So, Ben, you have one of the most interesting stories in all of American extreme metal, whether it be sludge, grind, death, even black metal. Like, you covered pretty much every basis of traditional metal.
Well, I appreciate that.
I mean, yeah, absolutely, man. And I mean, I grew up listening to you like a lot of kids and teenagers would in Louisiana, South Louisiana, and everywhere else apparently, because I was able to enjoy the festivals last year, Milwaukee and Maryland and Oakland.
Yeah.
So, dude, like, y'all had Soilent had this, is still having like this resurgence of sorts, just like the guys in Acid Bat, and rightfully so. So it's like the world's finally catching up. But before all that happened, I mean, what was it like growing up in Metairie?
Metairie, unique place, very unique place. No, it was interesting, you know, like Metairie being like a suburb of New Orleans, but going to like downtown New Orleans wasn't like a task, you know, like when people think of like New York City or Los Angeles or bigger cities like that, like Chicago, it's like it takes time to get from like suburbs to actual like city center. It wasn't a big deal. It was like maybe 15-20 minutes from where I lived in Metairie, and I would go to the city for you know, a lot of shows. They had some places in Metairie that had shows as well. Like we had like a Lions Home or VFW Hall, you know, that they would put on shows, and you would have little bands come and play. Like a city that I saw a lot of shows at when I was younger, that was like it was a big place for a lot of bands as I was growing up, you know, like Shell Shock, Graveyard Rodeo, Exhorter, things like that, you know, and bands that came through like early days of Corrosion of Conformity, like, you know, Animosity, Eye for an Eye. They played at VFW Hall. Black Flag, Henry Rollins, Suicidal Tendencies, things like that, you know. And then there was another venue in the French Quarter called the Storyville Jazz Hall, and saw a lot of shows there too. You know, I saw Creator, Holy Terror, DRI, Creator Corner, Suicidal Tendencies played there for Join the Army. There was numerous shows there. None of these places exist anymore, but they were like the main points of a lot of shows as I was growing up within the scene and stuff like that. And you know, as I was growing up, I'd seen people like Kirk, you know, and Jimmy Bauer and Mike Williams and some of the earlier bands that they were involved with, you know, before they got to the point that they're at now. So it's really cool to like be involved. Like I was like not necessarily part of a band yet in the scene, but witnessing dudes that evolved into what they are now. Mm-hmm. You know, so there was a lot of friends of mine that couldn't go to shows in the city. Their parents wouldn't let them. My dad was pretty lenient. The one specific VFW Hall place was like not far. He used to work for a railroad. It was Southern Railways, and then it ended up turned into Norfolk Southern. Uh-huh. And he worked for the railroad for pretty much his entire career. He went from like working for the railroad to working for the credit union for the railroad. So, you know, the railroad office wasn't far from that one VFW hall in the city. So he would be like, okay, you know, I'll drop you off there. There's a payphone outside. When the show's over, call me. I'll come pick you up. You know, I mean, I was still like in high school at this point. And so I had that kind of experience. And then I was able to like cross paths with people that actually lived in proper New Orleans. Yeah. You know, instead of like greater New Orleans and the suburbs around it. and meet people that were starting bands and things like that, people into the same kind of music, which kind of evolved in that aspect. My first like introduction to like anything sort of like metal was actually like kind of through my sisters, because my oldest sister went out with a guy and he was in like a band more like in the vein of like early Def Leppard, things like that, you know, and that's what they were about, and that was like on the surgence of things like that,
like High and Dry and Pyromania and all that good stuff.
Yeah, you know, the earlier stuff. So, you know, I kind of introduced to that, and then I would go to the store and I kind of went on my own quest to like find stuff. But then as like I made friends in the neighborhood that either they were into skateboarding and they listened to punk or, you know, hardcore or some kind of thrash metal or whatever, to meeting people at shows, and then, you know, expanded my horizon more and more and things. And then I would just on my own sometimes just buy stuff on the whim from the record store at the mall. You know, like we had a record bar, and that was the place to kind of go to, you know, find unique stuff. We also had two, they were called Warehouse Records and Tapes. Warehouse Music Records and Tapes. And it was two of them on Veterans Boulevard, the main street that went through Metairie. It had like all the stores on it and stuff. And they had a lot of like obscure shit, shirts, you know, vinyl, everything. That's where you would go as well. And where I lived, it wasn't that far that you could ride your bike, but interstate kind of, I lived kind of south of the interstate. So you would have to cross the interstate per se, either over a bridge, or what we found was there was a canal that went under part of it, and we would go by the canal, and it'd be like a little path along underneath, and we would go under the interstate, and then get to the other side, and then we'd cross over and we'd go to these stores. I'm sure my parents hearing this now, like, I can't believe you did that. And you know, you shouldn't have did that, because I mean, they had some nefarious action underneath the bridge on the interstate, you know, by the canal that was going on. You know, we'd have people smoking weed or whatever, doing stuff that back then they considered illegal.
Right.
You know, but we would ride to these places on our bikes, go in there and check things out. So, you know, and then I had friends that were into it, and, you know, we would kind of like, one would buy something, one would buy something else, and then we'd swap it, you know, and we'd share stuff like that. And so it led me down this like, you know, rabbit hole with stuff, and I would be more and more interested in, you know, we didn't have the internet or anything then. Yes, I'm old, but at the same time it was unique because you interacted with people more to find out about stuff. You're in a record store and there's another guy next to you looking at stuff, and it's something related to something you're into, and you ask him a question, he's like, oh, there's, you know, you should check this out, you know, like even when I started going to like Tower Records in the city and I was buying records, I met a guy there, and that was one of my early stages of coming across like the earache bands, the early earache stuff like Bolt Thrower, Napalm Death, Carcass, things like that. And I bumped into this guy, and he was like, you know, if you really want to check out everything, Earache put out this sampler called the Grind Crusher sampler, and it comes with this like little 7-inch, and it comes with a 12-inch. And so I bought it, you know, and it introduced me to more and more bands on that label. And, you know, so everything was like connected in a way through people, through association of what kind of music you were into, what you like listened to and everything. And that kind of built the blocks, you know?
Yeah.
And like I was really varied. I mean, I have to say I took more of the path to metal than anything, but I was more into a lot of aspects. Like I was into the punk, like I was listening to Dead Kennedys and things like that, you know, but because like the skateboard friends I had were more into like punk rock stuff.
Yeah.
Dead Kennedys, Ramones, things like that. So I had that kind of angle too. So as I was growing up, I liked these things, these different aspects, you know, but I think I gravitated more towards the metal aspect, but those other aspects kind of like subconsciously influenced me as well. And then, you know, as we go on, you start getting into this idea of like tape trading. You know, like there's demos of bands being circulated and people are passing them around and recording them for other people, you know, or when you first start getting into like the mail part of it, you would get an envelope and it'd have a tape, but it'd have all these little flyer ads in it too. Bands pushing themselves, different bands have, we have a demo out, send $5 to this address and we'll send you the demo, send $2, whatever. And so there was things like that. And actually, it was unique because early on when I was skateboarding too, and like looking at magazines like Thrasher and Maximum Rock and Roll and things like that, they used to have little ads in there too that, like, even for a skate company, it says send a self-addressed stamped envelope and $1 and we'll send you a bunch of stickers. And then you would get like your envelope, your self-addressed envelope back with a bunch of stickers for like Thrasher magazine or for Powell Peralta or
Santa Cruz,
any of those companies. Dogtown, the list goes on and on. So, it was kind of like that aspect, but then it was like, so it's music, it's demos, and it was like all kinds of different bands, punk, metal, death metal, things like that. And I started doing that a lot. And then I started, writing with people on a global level and tape trading. And it was like, that was a real exciting thing because, you'd be in school and a lot of times the mail took a while, definitely coming from overseas and stuff like that. And you never know when anything would arrive. And then, like, you'd come home from school and there was a package and it had tons of stamps all over it or whatever. And you're like, oh yes, this came in, so it was like this exciting, like, I guess a reward, right. Something new to listen to, things like that. And, and that was like a quest too. And, I still, it's kind of crazy. I get called a hoarder, but I guess in some ways, yes, but then I feel like a lot of my stuff that I've quote unquote hoarded has many different values. It has like cultural value, it has personal value, some of it has financial value as well. Because I still have like all the demos. I still kept like even a lot of the mail, like the envelopes and shit from back in the day. Like I used to have all of that kind of stuff.
Rumor has it that I'm glad you brought up the letters from overseas and the mail from overseas, because rumor has it that you've even traded letters with Euronymous.
I had one of those little Mayhem ads, and so I ordered a Mayhem shirt and a Death Crush CD from him. And I didn't know it was necessarily going to be him, but I sent the thing in, and then I get it back in the mail, and I get the shirt, which I still do have, and I still do have the CD, and I have the envelope and the letter, and it's him, and he signs it and everything, and it's Euronymous writing back.
That's crazy,
thanking me, explaining other stuff that might be coming out on Death Crush, things like that, and so. Not Death Crush, Death Like Silence Productions. Death Crush was the Mayhem record. So on Death Like Silence Productions and, different like future things he's thinking of. And it's funny because I'm pretty sure, I'd have to go back and check, but he mentioned like the early idea of putting out the first Burzum record.
Wow.
And things like that. Like, I'm looking at doing this and, and he explains it in the letter. And it's really fucking kind of cool, when you look back at it. At that time, it's like, oh, this is cool. This guy from the band, wrote. But then again, it wasn't that crazy of a thing, because when you would write to bands or try to purchase the demo or whatever, the little flyer had, it was someone from the band responding to you, basically sending the package back to you, writing a letter saying, thanks for, helping us out. Hope you enjoy the music, And I got in the earlier days of At the Gates, I was writing with one of the Joyler brothers. And I actually had some like At the Gates rehearsal tapes of songs before they put out With Fear They Kiss the Burning Darkness. So that was like really fucking cool too. So I had like a lot of these like different little aspects that were really unique, and then like then too, I was in this death metal band called Paralysis. And I kind of traded like shirts with him too. I had this like old At the Gate shirt, and I sent him a Paralysis shirt. So that was kind of cool too, because I was a really big fan of At the Gates. Like, I got the Gardens of Grief release, and then like Red in the Sky Is Ours came out, and then I got rehearsal tapes for With Fear We Kiss the Burning Darkness. I went and saw them a bunch when they first came to the States. I saw them in New Orleans. I saw them in Texas. Because too, when when I was growing up too, like if we go back to when I was younger and going to shows, it got to a point where I found out that the Houston scene was really, really popping. A lot of shows were going on in Houston.
Now, what year is this, Ben?
This would be probably around like late 80s.
Okay.
You know, somewhere like 87, 88, 89, up in there.
In half a mile,
And
join the USA
I had
70
also
north
been to
exit.
Houston, like, before I ever got in Soilent Green. I hung out with some of the guys and I drove with them to Houston for like, they went there to go record in the earlier days when Glenn was singing with them and things like that, and they do shows. So I took some rides with them. I like to travel a lot even when, you know, I was younger. It was like a thing. It was a thing all through my life growing up, was like a traveling aspect. You know,
Continue on USA
during the
70
summer,
north for 142 miles.
during the summer, you know, my parents would do vacations, like long vacations, 1 to 2 weeks, and we drive places. So it was kind of like built in. It was kind of like an aspect of some kind of travel, you know, like that. So I like the whole idea with the band, like you went places, but then you presented yourself playing to people. So that was like more an interesting thing. And then you also met new people in the scene, new music, playing with local bands from those areas or other bands on the road as well. So it introduced you to even more stuff and more people that had more knowledge in certain styles, because maybe their scene, like the Houston scene, had better record stores, more people with bigger record collections, more stuff that you were like, holy shit, what is this? What is this? You know, it was just like, I was like a sponge, like, holy shit, all these things, you know? And so that was like an aspect to that. So once I found out about shows, I would plan trips with friends and we'd drive to Houston, which was like anywhere, you know, depending on traffic then, like 5 hours, maybe 6, depending, you know, if you stop somewhere, goof off for a while. And we go see shows out in Houston. I think the first one we went and saw was Morbid Angel, and it was during like the Altars of Madness era. And we went there. And when we got to the show, the amount of people outside, like, it made New Orleans look like there was like 3 people at a show.
Damn.
Like it was packed. And I was like, holy shit, this is fucking crazy. And we go in, and I just remember being near the back of the venue and Morbid Angel's playing, and you just can see the silhouette of the people. It just looked like fucking chaos. But then you'd see people climb the PAs and they had like rafters in the building.
Right.
And they'd hang from the rafters and then just drop into the pit. And it was like the most fucking mind-blowing shit, like as a young person, you know. I think I was, I want to say maybe 18 or something, or 17, 18, somewhere up in that area when I first went there and went to a show. And I was like, this is fucking insane, and I love it. It's fucking phenomenal, you know? And of course, I mean, Morbid Angel was fucking insane as fuck at that time. So, you know, and then we would look and see what tours were coming through, and like a lot of them wouldn't be coming to New Orleans. New Orleans was a smaller market. So we'd say, well, get a group of friends, we'd all chip in for fuel, we'd drive to Houston, we might meet up with somebody, stay at their house, or we just get a hotel room, and like 10 of us would pile into a hotel room or some shit like that, and we go to the show. And then like sometimes we try to leave really early, because then, okay, there was a main street in Houston called Westheimer, and there was all these record stores on Westheimer, and we'd basically get in town early and we'd hit all the record stores, and then we'd go to the show. And that was the routine. We'd come out and be like, oh, I got all of this shit, I got this shit, you know. But it was this whole little unique experience like that was going on. But that's like the early evolution of, you know, the aspect of how things came to be, in a sense, with my life within this.
Yeah, you name dropped a few bands that, you know, very influential in metal. You know, name like Morbid Angel, Bolt Thrower, and things like that. When it comes to, you know, your taste and your favorites, and as a teenager, like, what set it off for you? Like, whenever you heard these extreme metal bands, what was the one that just really just took you by the balls? It was like, okay, I'm into this.
I think I want to say it was Napalm Death that really triggered me, because there was a point. So I was listening to all these different bands, but there was a point where the element of speed within the music was like captivating for me. And I remember being in Texas, and I was at one of the record stores, and I saw From Enslavement to Obliteration. And on the like plastic covering of the record, written in marker, was fastest band in the world with a question mark. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. Never heard them before. I've seen the name and stuff, you know, just from people's shirts and stuff like that, but never heard it. And I was like, I'm getting it. And so I got it. And I came home, and I remember when I came home, I didn't have a turntable at the house, but my friend had a turntable. And so went to his house, we put it on, and the first song comes on, and it's slow as hell. But it was really heavy, like industrial, like heavy, but with guitars, drums, and everything like that. And I was like, this is cool, but was it just like some kind of like pun or silliness to write that on the thing, you know, write that across the cover? And then the song ends and the next song starts, and that's when I was like, oh, okay, now I know why. Yeah. And it just took off, you know, and that was like an introduction to like grindcore. Yeah. And I was like, holy shit. And then I went down that rabbit hole, you know. Of course I went back because I went to Scum, and then I just followed through with Mentally Murdered came out, and, you know, went on from there, and then it progressed. But then that led me to the other earache bands like Carcass and Bolt Thrower, who had a grind element. They weren't 100% grind, but they had a grind element in what they were doing. And that opened the door to, you know, other aspects, and finding other bands like Assuck and things like that, you know, who did like full-time grind type shit, you know. And I mean, I also had like areas earlier like with Discharge, but that wasn't fully like the grind thing, like when I hit like Extreme Noise Terror, you know, and then you're like, oh, okay, this is more upbeat, there's a quicker element to it, you know, there's Napalm Death, there's a really fucking fast element to it. And I remember too, there was a magazine, I don't remember what magazine it was. It was Rip or one of those earlier magazines. It's definitely like before Metal Maniacs. And they had one double page thing, and it said, these are the like fastest bands out in the US. And it had Dark Angel, Cryptic Slaughter, Spastic Blur, Wehrmacht, things like that. And, you know, that's like, I delved into Dark Angel because I was like, holy shit, this is, you know. So at a point, it didn't matter if it had like a like a hardcore punk quickness, right, or a thrash metal, speed metal quickness. I like the quickness
you like
aspect.
The speed of it.
Yeah, I like the velocity of what was going on, and it really like caught my thing. But being that, you know, bands like Bolt Thrower, who did blasts here and there, but then just did the straight heavy shit, that opened me up to like heavier shit, you know. But then even the idea of heavy changed a little bit, because I remember going to a show, it was at American Legion Hall, and it was in the, like the Metairie area, and it was the Cro-Mags were touring for Best Wishes, and Destruction was out with them. And I was already a big fan of Destruction and both Cro-Mags as well. So I go to the show, and Jimmy Bauer's there. I don't really know Jimmy personally yet. And Jimmy Bauer goes, Melvin's heaviest fucking band in the world. And I was just like, what's this dude talking about? Like, what's, you know, and he goes, Melvins, bro. Melvins. Heavy. He goes, you ain't gonna find anything heavier than the fucking Melvins. You know? I mean, dude, Jimmy Bauer was the spokesperson for the Melvins in the New Orleans scene in the early days of like Ozma, Louis, Porsche.
Yeah, that's been highly documented with a bunch of different
yes.
podcasts and
also,
whatnot.
I think that's too, that the Melvins were one of the catalysts for like I Hate God.
Yeah.
You know, like his aspect of writing like slower, heavier shit. I mean, yes, Sabbath, of course, but like having the Melvins kind of impacted the heaviness they did. So then that made me realize the heaviness of like the Melvins and then like the heaviness of like Bolt Thrower, you know?
Yeah.
Two different heavy aspects. They both present it in different ways, but they're both heavy as fuck on how they present it, you know? So it kind of opened me up to a lot. And like I said, I did have blinders on it at one point where I was just like straight into death metal or straight into black metal, you know, and I kind of leaped to different things because they caught my ear or whatever, or caught my eye. Mostly the ear, of course. But those aspects were like, they didn't keep me blinded. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
I did have blinders on, but at one point I removed them because I was like, if I continue like this, I won't see these other things that are equally as good coming in as well. And even though it's slightly a different style, and of course when I was younger, you know, there were cliques of genres. People liked certain genres. And so in a way you felt like you needed to remain slightly quiet about the aspect of being into a lot of these other things because you had to fit into a genre per se, you know, and like, oh, you into death metal? Cool. And I would say, well, I also like, you know, I like the Cro-Mags as well. Well, what the fuck, man? But you know, I had this and I had taste. And sometimes I have friends that come over and they'd see and they're like, what are these other tapes you have? Like, what's this? What's this like COC and Eye for an Eye, you know? Or what's Descendants? Or what's the Dead Kennedys doing in here, you know? And you're like, yeah, but that shit's, it's cool, you know? And then, you know, you had the onset of DRI and bands like DRI who added like a crossover element to things, you know, where they mixed up like the metal with the hardcore.
All right, back again with Mr. Ben Falgoust.
How you doing today?
Doing good, man. How are you doing? You enjoying the drive?
Yeah. Drive's nice.
Shit, yeah, man. Right. So last time we were talking about how you were 17 and just discovering all the different subgenres, but back then we didn't really classify everything as having a genre of metal.
It was just, well, I mean, you had death metal, black metal, thrash metal, speed metal, you know.
Yeah.
Now we got so many more different little subgenres and everything, so it's a lot of crossing over of ideas and stuff nowadays, so it's kind of expanded a little bit more.
Yeah.
A little more basic back then. Primitive per se.
Yeah.
Because of age.
Shit. I'm getting my fingers all up in the fucking frame and everything. Oh well. That just creates more of the organic experience.
Yeah.
So, I think we talked about it, you know, before this recording, how your parents were really supportive of you from the jump. Like you having your friends over and like jamming all that classic death metal at your place.
I don't necessarily say, I wouldn't say supportive.
Yeah.
But they didn't shun me for it or anything, and they just kind of accepted, you know, the path that I was taking in a sense, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, they were probably like a parent that was just like, oh, it's just a phase. And it's just like, yeah, well, here I am at 52. It's not a phase.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I can relate.
So, and I think, I mean, not just with me, just like you said, you can relate, but many people that are into like extreme metal and go on later in their lives, and it's not that's their music, you know.
Yeah.
That's what they like. That's what gets them through the day and stuff like that. So, yeah.
If you can indulge me and satisfy some of my curiosity, were there any specific like hard times like in your life where like metal was just there to like bring your spirits back up?
Yeah, I mean, it was just basic stuff, whatever, like troubles when you're growing up and you go into high school, and then, there's certain cliques, but you don't really fit in with certain things, and you're kind of like a loner in a sense. Metal kind of came to the helm at that, and was like, that helped out. And then you met people through that, and then you started, building friends off of that kind of stuff too. And also, being young, going through relationships, learning the ins and outs of that, and definitely metal kind of steps in certain ways for that as well,
Yeah.
I mean, I have to say, like, big time, typo negative was a big thing, like, when I went through, like, relationship shifts,
Yeah.
Peter Steele offered a lot of words of wisdom and rage sometimes, too, because when you're younger and you're still kind of learning ins and outs of relationships, you get kind of angry about shit, but through time you kind of understand it a little better, and you're like, oh, okay, I get this. But he definitely had a lot of input in his lyrics, even from the ruthlessness of Carnivore to the stuff that he did in Typo Negative. But it's that was like a big part too. So yeah, like there was variances of time, like I said, being like a loner, and then you find something and it makes you feel like whole, and then you come across people that are kind of in that same kind of variation as well. So it's definitely like impactive on an emotional level for sure.
Yeah.
And also I always felt like when I listened to certain things, I had that feeling, like it opened things up, and I felt like I was connected to something a little more, and I was like, yeah, this is not like this person understands me or anything. it was a thing of like, this makes me feel whole, this makes me feel complete. It closes something that's a void, not necessarily like a void, but maybe a void, but like this empty thing where I couldn't explain the emotion yet.
Yeah. Well, besides Typo Negative, man, like what was something, like if you were pissed off at the world and you just had like the go-to band to fucking like just like get all that anger out, and you could just feel that whole, like, just all that negative emotion just exit your body, like who was that band that you
I didn't have like a one for that, actually.
Okay.
It was just any given band that was really heavy and relentless. I mean, the subject matter wouldn't even be a part of it either. It would just be how they sounded. I mean, even like early Metallica was like a vessel for that. Like Kill 'Em All, Ride the Lightning, Master of Puppets. It had that element, the heaviness. I was always like, when I got into it, I became like guitar driven about things too, and records that really had prominent guitars that sound like chainsaws and things like that. So that was like a huge element. But that would be, it wouldn't even have to, I really enjoyed the lyrics and stuff like that of a lot of metal bands, and it definitely, in a lot of cases, it made you like dig out a thesaurus or a dictionary, and kind of sends you on a path to kind of dig deeper into terms and words and stuff like that. So, but the music itself, like the really heavy orientated stuff, was the stuff that kind of would help release that, like being mad at something or the anger or things like that. It would just open it up. It was like a venting channel. Not like I'd go somewhere and beat, but I could get into, like, I could be in my room and turn it up and jam, put it on headphones, turn it up, be in a vehicle, turn it up, and it was almost like all that stuff would just seep out, and it'd be like, you'd feel that like negative weight of being angry just lift.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a whole bunch of different bands. It was like no one specific that would do that. There was just a bunch of them, because too, like at that time too, I was still like a sponge, and I was absorbing as much as I could. So there was like so many different styles within extreme metal that were like coming in, that I was like, oh, I could use all of this to kind of like clear my head.
Yeah. So let's settle this, man. I mean, I'm just really curious. Would you say you put on Dismember more than you put on, say, Entombed growing up, or?
Actually, I discovered Entombed first, for sure.
Okay.
You know? But when I discovered Dismember, I really liked it, and I tended to, I leaned towards Dismember way more as I was growing up.
Gotcha.
You know, nothing against Entombed.
No.
I enjoyed a lot of the shit they did, you know. I enjoyed LG's fucking vocals a lot. But there was something about Dismember that just like, I trailed towards that.
Yeah.
You know, and I followed it like closer than Entombed did.
And then you got into more, you know, of, I'm just really curious, as a black metal fan, just really curious how, what made it about black metal that piqued your interest?
Okay, this is kind of weird too, because when you discuss it, it's weird because I grew, like, I was already listening to like Celtic Frost,
right,
Venom, Bathory. Like Bathory was like, I really loved that band. Like when I first heard them, I was just like, wow, this is really different. This is odd, you know. Same thing with Celtic Frost, you know, Venom as well. But those were like, it really wasn't discussed then or labeled as black metal, you know?
Yeah.
But those were like the purveyors of the black metal kind of angle. And then when I started to dig in, and I got like, I found Mayhem, and then when Dark Throne put out A Blaze in a Northern Sky, that was a big shift too, and it was something totally different. It was rooted in the earlier ideas, but it had its own element too, you know. And then, you know, bands like Emperor and Gorgoroth and Burzum and all these bands started popping out of there, you know. And then you were like, holy shit, like what is this? It's there, you know. Like I had the Celtic Frost roots, the Bathory roots, but then this came up, and I guess I didn't really like connect it too much then.
Yeah. As
later on, when you start to look and you get a little older, you can kind of see similarities and stuff, and you're like, holy shit, this is more like this, you know. This is where these things come from, you know. And but there was something about it, and it was like, it was wicked, you know. Not to be like, oh, evil and shit, but there was something wicked about it, and just the tone projected an emotion of this like wicked essence. And then also, you know, it had the lyrics and delved into like Satanism or esoteric kind of things, you know, ideas within the dark arts, stuff like that, and all that shit was kind of blended into that, and so it added to it, so it kind of like all fit together really well. And so I kind of went, because at that point I was really into death metal, and I had been in the Dark Throne for Soulside Journey,
right.
And then Ablaze came out, and I remember we got the record, and you saw the cover, and you put it on, and you were just like, what the fuck's going on here?
What the fuck's going on with this shit?
I was just listening to Soulside Journey. I was prepping for this, you know, because too then you didn't have like these things where they put out like a song prior to the record on YouTube or whatever, or releases. We didn't have that. It was just like new records coming out, and in your head you're expecting something, you know, like when the tune put Left Hand Path out, and then when they put like Clandestine out, you know, you had this idea of, you know, what Entomb sounds like, where you were going with that. And when A Blaze in the Northern Sky came out, and you know, you got it, and you sat down, and we all sat down and listened to it, and we're, you know, me and a couple of friends, and I'm like, what is going on? But then like in my head I'm going, this is pretty wicked. I really like this. I like where this is going, you know. It's different from what they did, and I really appreciated Soulside Journey, and I still do. I love the record, you know. Soulside Journey to me showcased like Fenriz he's like an amazing drummer when you listen to Soulside Journey.
Yes.
And then with Dark Throne, he kind of like just went like primitive
Right.
in a sense. So I was like, I'm just traversing some traffic right now.
Yeah.
Um,
Bringing it to you
But
from the fucking road.
I was like, yeah, you know, his drumming changed, but it still sounded good. Really good. Like it was just a different angle of his skill, you know? And then even, you know, all the other guys as well. And then, you know, the vocal shift, of course. But it was, yeah, it just caught me. Like I was like, holy shit. And then I guess that, you know, that just snowballed into other stuff, like other bands, like, because whenever you heard something, like you heard something that was death metal for the first time, it sent you down the rabbit hole, find anything that was close to that or associated with that kind of style.
Yeah.
And I was just like, holy fuck, man. Like that was pretty fucking insane.
I mean, so
And so like I did that with black metal as well, and just delved into it and just went back, things that were already existent that was really not known about, just dug into it and went, you know, like, and then, you know, records came out, like Emperors of Records came out, things like that, you know, and then you would follow different things, and then there was that label Moonfog Records. I think it was pretty Satir.
yeah,
I think.
Satir had owned
Yeah.
that.
And that put out a lot of stuff, so I would buy a bunch of stuff from that as well, you know, and then also discovered that because I got into Satyricon as well. So it was just another basic like rabbit hole of like another like within metal genre,
Right.
like a subgenre, you know, because then you have metal, then you have like black metal, death metal, thrash metal, speed metal, doom metal, you know, and it was just another thing I went down the path on and went into it. And whenever I got into something, I did have blinders on initially because I was just focused on that style because it was a quest.
Yeah.
But then after a while, it opened up again because I still listened to like death metal. It's not like I just shunned something.
Right.
I still listened to the other stuff because I was rooted in it. It just at that point, I was like focused on that kind of style. And I was like, I'm going down this path right now. So
Yeah.
I would just put these little temporary blinders up and just roll into it, you know?
Do you find yourself leaning towards like black metal bands that are more emphasis on the atmosphere, that evil sounding atmosphere, or it's like more like just balls out, like just knuckle dragging riffs, blast beats? Because I know a lot of people, you know, kind of teeter the fence of certain black metal subgenres and shit like that.
Yeah, I know. Like a lot of, I don't think I ever teetered the fence though. Like I liked the aspect of what Emperor did, and then with the keyboards and everything and on all their stuff. But then I liked like the primitive nature that Dark Throne had to offer, or the primitive end that Mayhem had to offer, you know. And then, you know, like there's a band, I don't know, it was called Voidblenzen. And that band really stumped me too, because it was really like, it did like this kind of like gothic melancholy thing, but then it went into these nasty ass like black metal parts. And it's funny because when I was younger and I first heard them, and the way the drumming was,
Yeah.
the drumming sounded like Fenris's drumming off of Soulside Journey.
Oh shit.
And I thought Fenris played with them.
Yeah.
Like there wasn't like info and shit. And I was like, that sounds like his like style, like from Soulside Journey, like when they did more like the melancholy stuff, but then they went into the faster stuff. So I was like, it sounds like him because it's both. It sounds like both of like his skill set.
Yeah.
And but yeah, and I would get into a lot of those bands, you know. And then as you know, you had more the war metal type black metal.
Right, like
you
your
know.
Blasphemies and the
Yeah,
world.
yeah, like Blasphemy. And I got into Blasphemy. I used to write a guy in France, Evil Ludo Lejeune, and he was a head of the Blasphemy fan club in Europe.
Oh shit.
And he would like send me like stickers and shit, and he had like Beherit in there and everything like that. And so I had a bunch of shit like that, and that's, you know, that was on the little path I discovered and crossed paths with people that were more into that style. And then kind of got schooled from those people, like of certain things that were out. So I would listen to those different styles within black metal, you know, from the more primitive to the more eccentric with the keyboards and stuff to the more really primitive, like war metal style.
Yeah.
So that I didn't really have one. I'd find certain bands that did different things, and I just appreciated it. I was really pretty open about a lot of it, you know. I was like, and I found things. And there's bands that might have did a style that I was into, but I just didn't really like how they were doing it.
Yeah.
You know, and I was just like, and somebody would be like, but you don't like this one? And I was like, they're kind of so-so, you know. I like this one better. I like how they do it. And I like how the chemistry works with that and their execution of what they're doing. So I guess I had a little pickiness to it as well, but I wasn't picky as far as the range of the styles.
I'm just really curious, you know, you talked about how you discovered majority's bands around friends. Like within your inner circle, whenever you're younger, were you considered like the most extreme guy? That was
when I first started, and we were listening to stuff, and then I would start bringing more and more obscure table. Yes, I was like the extreme guy.
Yeah.
Until I met more and more people into extreme stuff.
Yeah.
You know? But within like the group of a few friends and that we were listening to metal and stuff like that, they were like, "Wow, you're going really far. Like, you know, you're going to really crazy shit." Like,
yeah.
I had friends that liked the more manicured, like really good recorded metal,
polished stuff.
Yeah. You know, and so some of them things they would like, and some they'd be like, yeah, no, I'm not really into that, you know. So, but it was cool because we dug it, and they accepted, you know, the kind of path I was taking. They were like, that's interesting, you know. But yeah, I was kind of like the extreme angle, and then, like I said, as I progressively met newer people into it, you were like, holy shit, there's a lot of people that are into shit like this, you know.
And so during the time you're discovering like Dark Throne and whatnot, was this the same time that you had paralysis?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you were bringing all this heavy, extreme Scandinavian influence, and to, you know, one of the earliest.
So paralysis was like, it was death metal.
Right.
It was just straight up death metal with a hint of some like little things. But then when like the black metal things started to come in a little more,
yeah,
we were starting to get into the idea of like adding elements to it. Not too much. Yeah. You know, nothing crazy, but the one guitar player, Galito, his full name is Edgardo da Costa Gomez. He was into a lot of the black metal stuff too. And so he was trying to like add it in a little bit. But like we said, not too much. We were kind of fresh on it, so we didn't want to look stupid with it as well.
Yeah.
So he would add in, you know, and then we had like Tony White, who played guitar, and we had Alex Johnson on drums, and then Ian Foley on bass. And they were still, Alex, Tony, and Ian were still more death metalish, which was cool, because then we could kind of like do a little balancing thing, and then add a little spice hint of this here and there. So we start, before Paralysis kind of like ended up just slowly like not being a band anymore, we were working on things where we were incorporating things like that. And also at that same time, I was really into, I guess you can call it doom metal. I was into Paradise Lost, My Dying Bride, Anathema, bands like that, Panthymonium, a good death metal band too that was like on the cusp of like that avant-garde edge was Edge of Sanity.
Yeah.
You know, Dan Swando. He did a lot of fucking epic stuff back in the day. So I was into that too, and I wanted them to write not a lot, but little spots where it would have some kind of like aspect of that as well, because I was really into that. and some of the other guys were into that as well, but I was like really in, like, you can take Goatwh's first record, The Eclipse of Ages Into Black, and really listen to it and go back, and you can pull out elements of like early My Dying Bride, early Paradise Lost,
Yeah.
you know, things like that. You can be like, holy shit, look, this is totally like thrown in there, you know, like vocally or whatever, to just like my hail to like being into that stuff there.
Yeah.
So
Paralysis, that was your first band, like
Yes.
first traveling, like
Yes.
touring band.
yes.
Did the songwriting process come like really natural to you for being in your first band?
No, it didn't at all. Like,
Okay.
I mean, because I didn't really play. I had a guitar and I fiddled with it, but I was not really like schooled with like music
Uh-huh.
and stuff and playing and stuff like that. So I got in a band, and you know, I had like an idea, but Galito was really good with like ideas and stuff. So me and him would sit down and work on lyrics together, and then he would like help me out with like patterns, like, you know, like that. We'd sit around, you know, everybody would come over to somebody's house, and we'd sit around and we'd focus, and we'd go, all right, so this is the song, this is what's going on, record it on the jam box in the room, bring it back, play it. Okay, we can do vocals here, this and this, do this, but you know, you'd have that like that. So like, you know, early death metal is just like, you know.
Yeah.
But then, like, as you went along, you know, listening to bands like Judas Priest and Iron Maiden and stuff like that, you're like, wait a minute, what if you took this vocal and added like actual like verses instead of just like hitting like measures, you know, dun 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 dun. You're actually just, or like, you're not singing, because you can't sing like Halford or fucking Dickinson, but you're doing it in that sense, like the verses like they do.
Yeah.
You know, and do it more like that instead of this like set kind of like idea. So there began to be like that aspect as well. So I evolved into like learning with that, you know, and because I was with people that had more of a musical skill.
Yeah.
And I mean, that even goes on to like when I joined Soilent, when I joined Goatwhore. Luckily enough, I've always been around a lot of like really good musicians, you know?
Yeah.
Like when I got in Soilent, you know, with Brian Patton and Diamond Punch and Tommy Buckley and Scott Williams, you know, then they were all really good musicians. So in my head too, I was like, bro, you need to raise the bar. So it's like, it was a forced thing too, like, you know, if you have to ask them what they think about this or whatever, or you got to sit down and figure it out, you need to raise the bar to these dudes.
Right.
You know, and like when I got in Goatwhore, with like in the early days, it was Sammy Duet, Ben Stout, Pat Ruders, Zach Nolan. I was like, damn, these dudes are fucking really good. You better raise the bar and do this shit. And you know, and Zach Nolan and Sammy Duet were like into black metal. I was into black metal, but also like when you're coming into something, you're like, I don't want to roll up on here and see be like some kind of half-ass person.
Yes,
with this shit.
yeah.
These dudes are into this shit, you know. So I was always really surrounded by really good musicians, you know. And they might think then, you know, oh well, yeah, of course they're fucking, all of them are way better now, but that happens with time. Constantly playing, constantly doing records, that just, you know, everything evolves in that aspect. So, but I was lucky enough to be kind of surrounded by really, really talented people.
Yeah, I mean, everyone that you've been in a band with is like always on the top of their game. Fucking like, one could arguably even say innovators. You know, in like multiple genres of music.
Yes.
And it's crazy to me just like how the world's finally catching up to the likes of what y'all have already put down in the world with Soilent, and then Sammy with Acid Bath. Like there's like this huge like resurgence.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's with like all of that shit, like
Yeah.
Soilent, Acid Bath, Crowbar, Down, like all that stuff. It's like this thing, like it's been there, and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden people are like, "What's going on with this?" And
Exactly.
it's just like it's been there. It's been there for quite some time.
Yeah, man.
But sometimes it's like that, you know. Like I know, like sometimes younger bands ask me, like, "So what kind of like timeline?" I was like, "The timeline's basically inevitable. You don't know what's going to happen."
Right.
I mean, even when I was younger and watching bands, there's bands that had been around for 12 years before they actually got noticed.
Yeah.
You know, they were out there doing it and stuff, and there's still bands that do that. Like everybody thinks everything's immediate.
Yeah.
And it happens. It's just like, no, bands like you start like in a local scene, and then you build your popularity in the local scene, and then you're like, well, we play the local scene all the time. We got to get out. We have to go play a place 2 hours away, you know, and you go there, and it's almost like you're starting over again because there's people there that don't really know you, you know, and then you start building yourself there, and then word of mouth, things start circulating a little more, and then you can go a little further, and then, you know, whatever, you put out a record and it's on a bigger label, and then other people hear it, and then when you tour, you know, just that little cycle of things. And nowadays it's a lot easier. It's a lot easier, but I think also within it being easier because of the ways you can get your music out, it's more difficult because there's so many bands now. There's like so many bands. So you might have the accessibility for people to hear you, but now you're fighting with the myriad of bands that exist. So it's almost like a flip from when I was a kid.
Yeah.
You know?
Speaking of
Go
whenever
ahead,
you're a
Gary.
kid, man, I want to go back to that topic of paralysis and what was it like for a young Ben Falgoust to be traveling with, you know, a group of guys, heading out to shows, you know, some paying, some not, but, you know, how was that? How was, you know, being on the road at an early age like that?
I mean, it was fun, you know, it was great. I mean, I love to travel. Like when I was growing up, we traveled a lot, you know, with the family traveled a lot. Like my dad would get like 2 or so weeks off vacation during the summer, and we would drive places. You know, we would drive across the country places, and I always like looking at the little maps from like AAA and stuff like that. And so I was just like, this is cool because it's doing something that I'm really into.
Yeah.
And I'm having fun with it, and I'm traveling as well, which I really like to do.
Shit, yes.
So it was like I had that thing, and you know, it's not for everybody. You know, you sometimes as you're going along and you tour, you find some people they don't like the road. They're just not into it. They want to be in their little secure space, and I have to worry about all this like day-to-day change. You know, you're in a different city every day.
Yeah.
Your lifestyle, you live in a van most of the time, you know, and it's with anywhere between 4 to 6 other people, you know.
Yeah.
And so like alone time is like non-existent, you know. So, but I don't know. I guess like I had that like when I was a kid, and I mean, it wasn't like I was on the vacation all year. It was only like 2 weeks out of the summer, but it was like I felt like a nomad as a kid, in a sense, you know.
Yeah.
And I wasn't like I need these things. I was like, hell no, I'm in a van. I'm in this vehicle, and we're going to see these things. I'm going to see nature and other cities and shit. And then like when I got older, I just adapted that to the band thing.
Yeah, it's like now you're on vacation in a sense, but you're just rocking.
Yeah.
Now you get to play the music that you know that wasn't in the family vehicle.
Yes, exactly. Oh yeah, it was funny because when I did start getting into metal and stuff like that, I just had the little Walkman headphones.
Yeah.
Trip looking out the window, listening to some metal.
Yeah,
know?
but you had mentioned earlier that you know your older sister kind of put the influence on you.
Yeah, because of like earlier stuff like Def Leppard and things like that, Scorpions, early Motley Crue, shit like that. So there was that, and that's like listen to it, and then I would use the tapes and put them in a Walkman and listen to it, you know.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but didn't really listen to it in the vehicle loud. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah,
My
yeah.
dad was more like, I liked the little Willie Nelson, things like that, you know.
Yeah.
Kenny Rogers, you know, things like that. So my mom was like into like Elvis and some other things. But yeah, it was more just like chill music. But then you could just get away. You'd be driving and you could just get away, put the little headphones on, have the little Walkman, and just watch out the window, watch the scenery go by, and just listen to something that's fucking crazy as fuck.
Yeah.
You know.
So during the days of touring with Paralysis, did everyone pretty much carry their own weight as far as the logistics of getting back and forth, you know, like off the stage into the, like loading the equipment?
Yeah, everybody, we all pretty much like work together with that, you know.
Because I'm tired of like, this is the thing. The reason why I say this is because anyone who spends a significant amount of time on social media, namely like, you know, your Instagram and your Facebooks of the world, you always come across these reels like stereotyping bands. Like, you know, you see the bass player carrying his one bass and the guitar player with all his pedals and shit, and like they always put the vocalist looking like the laziest motherfucker in the goddamn group.
Oh.
And I'm like, nah, bruh. They haven't met Ben Falgoust. They haven't spent 2 minutes with Ben Falgoust because, dude, like, you do a lot, like, behind the scenes. You, not only the vocalist, you do tour management, you maintenance on the vehicles, artwork. I mean, you're just a lot more of, you know, the run-of-the-mill vocalist. And I think that should be, you know, mentioned if it hasn't been mentioned before on a podcast.
Yeah, well, it's funny too because there's some people say, man, you got to stop doing shit because you're going to lose your fucking vocalist union card. Because you shouldn't do that. But that's just the way, like, too, I was brought up. Like, it's like a work ethic thing, you know? Like when I was a kid, I didn't get an allowance. I had to do work to get money, like clean the gutters, shine shoes, fucking cut the grass, you know, and then make a little ledger. And each day I did the grass, whatever, $10. This day I did the gutters, $40, you know. And then my dad would give me the money, and then I would use that money to go to the record store, buy some shit, buy a shirt maybe, send it off in the mail to hopefully get something from another country or something like that. So
wait, hold on here. You said you shined shoes too. Was you shining your dad's shoes?
Yeah.
How much he paid you for that?
it was $5 a pair, bro. I think there was 3 pairs that he had, and it was once a week I would shine them.
Fucking
yeah. Like I'm dead serious, bro. I'm dead serious.
I believe you, dude.
But yeah, I mean, he had all kinds of little things. Like, I think it was more or less an idea to create in your head. You have to do this to make this money.
Right.
I'm not just going to give you, like, I had friends that got allowances.
Yeah.
You know, where they get this much every week.
Right.
My dad was like, you will do something to benefit the household, you know, me, your mom, or the house in general, yard, whatever, and then you'll make some money from it. You'll learn the idea of working to build something, you know, working to make some money and stuff like that. So it was like that. He worked for, so he worked at a railroad, but then he was working, for a while he worked at the railroad, but he was also the accountant at a credit union for the railroad.
Okay.
And every year they would do this thing and he would mail out stuff, and that would be another like chore to do to make money, is fold up all the things and put them in envelopes and put stamps on them. And so you would have whatever 2,000 of these things that had to be mailed out for the credit union. And you want to make a little money, you could do these. It makes a little money.
Hell yes.
Sit there, put some headphones on, fold shit up, put it in an envelope, put a stamp on it, make a big pile, and then, you know, he would end up bringing them to the post office. Or
Shit,
whatever.
man, he was prepping you to be, you know, a merch guy before you even acquired one in PM Star Patrick right here. Yeah.
But the idea was, when I got into it, whatever, it's like I didn't. Well, like I said too, I didn't have like that musical background, so I still had that etiquette of like, I'm like y'all, I'm gonna help you with this shit.
Yeah,
This is-
yeah.
You know, this is all of us
Yeah,
doing this.
right.
We're a whole team with this.
Yeah, where you?
So then I would just do shit. You know, I would just do it. Why not? I mean, let's do it. Let's get it loaded. Also, if there was more of us doing it, then we can hang out and have fun afterwards instead of like, you know, it dragging on with like having to get the gear packed away or something like that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, I started with like, I had like a Dodge Dakota with a little top on the back of it. And we put a U-Haul, like a 4x8 U-Haul trailer on it and put the gear in it, whatever. And two people would go in the back of the truck because they had the little top thing, and two would ride in the front. We'd do that. And then I upgraded to like a little van. It was a little Dodge van, a little just regular size van, cargo, just two front seats. I built this little loft in there, threw a mattress in there, put a U-Haul trailer, and then I bought a trailer, and then I upgraded to the bigger van, you know, so it was a cycle that kind of went on with that, and it was like a building block. And also like my dad legit, he co-signed for me for the first like van that I got.
No shit.
You know, because I know damn well if I didn't pay it, he would have beat the shit out of me. So it's like he co-signed to get me into that when I didn't really have like a credit yet.
Yeah.
You know? And so then do that and then build credit, you know, and start to realize, you know, because he was an accountant too, so I kind of learned some number shit
His
from him.
personality makes all the sense now.
Yeah,
Like
so-
for those who do not know your dad, I mean, for those of us who have the privilege of knowing your dad, like his personality is just so over the top. He's a one of a kind. Can you give the audience just a little snippet of your dad's? Do a little impression for him, please. I want to paint the scenario.
It's not really a.
I
He
know.
doesn't. It's funny because he doesn't really speak a lot, but when he speaks, it's just like solid things.
Yes.
And he's got like a really deep. He's like 6'5", and he's just like he'd be like, if I did something, and then like he didn't see me do it. Hey, clean that shit bar. I mean, yes, sir. I did this. I marked it in the little book. Okay, that was it. You know, it was just like he was a man of little words. The words he did say were unique at times.
Yeah.
But I think he was a man that wanted to see action,
Right.
and he was based off action,
Right.
as well. You know, like everything. Words are nothing without the action that go with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. I mean, definitely was. Definitely in the military because I picked up on that right away.
Yes,
When
he was.
before he even told me he was in the military, I was like, oh yeah, this he's a vet. There's no doubt.
Yeah. No, he was in the military for sure, 100%.
Fucking love Big Lou. Fucking love that man. And so paralysis lasted how long? Like a few years?
Yeah, it was like I want to say maybe 4 or 5 years or something like that.
Yeah.
And then I got asked to join Soilent Green. Like, so Glenn Rambo was the original singer. And
Yeah.
At one point, I guess they were having some internal, issues and stuff.
Yeah.
So they got rid of him, and they asked me, and I was like, holy shit, yeah, this is cool. I mean, because Paralysis played with Soilent. We played, Paralysis played with Acid Bath in the early days.
That's crazy
too.
shit, man.
So, and different other shows like that. And there was a big thing when we were younger like that. Like, you found out too, there was a lot of bands in the scene that you'd basically put your own show on, like a VFW hall or Lions Home, whatever. You'd rent it out. You'd bring in a little vocal PA or something, or you knew somebody and you rented it from them. And then you just, you brought in some like pallets from outside and
Yeah.
put some plywood and made a little shitty stage,
Uh-huh.
and then you'd make flyers and you'd go to school, pass them around, get them to pass them around at other schools, and kids would come to the show and stuff like that. And that's how you basically did it until you got to the point to where you could play at one of these bars or something, or one of these bigger shows, you know?
Yeah. For some of us who weren't around in the New Orleans scene, what were those first Soilent shows like? Whenever, like, as a spectator, you were in paralysis, and you got to watch those early shows from Soilent. What were those like, man?
Oh, the scene was crazy. Like, cause I think one of the first times I saw Soilent was they opened for Exhorder at Storyville Jazz Hall, and that show was fucking crazy. The whole show was fucking crazy. You know, those shows back then were so crazy. Like people diving off the stage, diving off the PAs, a huge fucking pit. Like Exhorder would do this thing called Skank Ball, and it was like, I don't know, it was like a bundle of paper made into a ball, or they had like one of those little, like, you know, those little crazy footballs that were small. They would have something like that, and during the song, before the song started, they say, we're gonna throw this into the pit during this song, and whoever has it at the end of the song gets a free shirt.
Nice.
And let me tell you, people got fucking wild. Kyle Thomas would throw that, the song would be playing, people would wait, he'd throw it in the air and hands grabbing it, and it looked like a mad scene from an NFL game.
Oh shit.
People would start piling on, and I would always think, I'd hate to be the person at the bottom of this fucking pile right now. You'd be suffocating.
Oh yeah.
You know? And then like, it would pop out, like it would be like a continuous fumble, you know? Like, and it would pop out somewhere, and somebody would grab it, and everybody would be chasing it and everything, until somebody got smart and like figured to like stick it in their pants or something and just hang off to the side. And then at the end of the song, it's like, who's got it? Somebody's like, dang, you know, you get a free shirt, man. You get a free. But I mean, if you think about it, it's dangerous as fuck.
Oh, it's dangerous as fuck, and like, you know, is that juice worth the fucking squeeze?
Yeah. But I mean, when we were younger, that was what it was, though. We didn't care. You know, like, we hung out until the sun went down. We rode our bikes around and fell off your bike and skimmed across the fucking concrete, you know? And it's just like, you got up and you're like, fuck it. And you got back on the bike and just kept going. Went in the woods, get poison ivy all over your bike as you climb some tree covered in poison ivy, you know?
Yeah.
That was just crazy shit. So it wasn't this, like, thing. Like, now you think about it, you're going, wow, that was pretty crazy. But then it was just like, yeah, this is a great idea.
Yeah.
This is a fabulous idea.
Everything was...
This dude is going to throw us this whole thing, and I might obtain a free shirt if I end up with this thing at the end. And I mean, they had some bigger dudes in there.
I'm sure.
Both bigger size-wise and bigger, like, muscle-wise. But it didn't matter. They had, like, little scrawny dudes in there trying to get it and climbing on top of... It was madhouse shit, but it was really fun. Like, Exhorder shows were fucking nuts back then. Fucking nuts.
So, who do you remember who initially asked you to be in the band? Was it Tommy, Brian?
I think it was Brian who kind of reached out, but they all had kind of discussed it.
Uh-huh.
And Brian, because I talked, like, I hung out with some of the guys, you know, I looked up to them or whatever. And so Brian was like, he reached out, he goes, hey man, you know, I talked with Tommy and Scott and everybody, Donovan, we want to see about, you know, getting you involved with song. And I was like, holy shit, yeah, I was like, that's really cool. And I was still in paralysis, but paralysis, I guess, kind of got to a point where it wasn't like the main focus in a sense.
Yeah.
They had some different aspects going on, you know. And but it was still a band. I was still in it, you know. But then I was doing the solo and stuff, and it just kind of slowly kind of slipped away.
Yeah. So like, I mean, Brian was on the podcast a while back when y'all did the first show back at Southport, and I don't know how many years.
I think it was like 12.
12 years.
Like that. Yeah.
And he was telling me how, you know, Soilent has always been obviously way different from anything else that was coming up in the New Orleans scene at the time.
Yes.
Where you know a bunch of bands where, you know, the tempo changes and was very not as, I guess, fervent in change like y'all were in Soilent. Everyone was kind of sluggish, kind of slow paced, but you guys just fucking kept, you know, there was no fucking slowing down. If there were, it was few and far between riffs.
Yeah, well, it's what's cool too about Soilent, like if you go to really early Soilent when Glenn was singing with them, I mean, they always did do different.
Yeah.
They had a different aspect. Like those dudes were more into like really peculiar bands within, like shit like Voivod is a staple, but it was also really different then.
Yeah.
You know? So they were into that and that whole like writing, that style like Voivod did too. But then mixed with other elements that they were into. And then when like the whole earache records and the death metal, grindcore, all that kind of stuff started making its fucking way through everything, Soilent started to like bring in those elements as well. And this was before I was in it, you know?
Yeah.
And they would add different things. And Brian and Donovan were really into a lot of different other shit. Like when that kind of era started happening with the grindcore stuff, you know, they were going down the path of like John Zorn, you know, and then they even started going deeper into things like the Boredoms, the Naked City thing that John Zorn did, and then like weird industrial shit like Dissecting Table and things like that, you know, which was spawned from bands like Godflesh, you know, like that. Not that Dissection Table was spawned from Godflesh, but it spawned Brian and then from listening to Godflesh to move to stuff like Dissection Table and bands in that kind of like caliber.
Yeah.
So Brian was always into a lot of really like odd shit. And then he was like into like jazz.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's like jazz and blues, you know? It's like dude would be listening to jazz and blues and they'd be listening to like Naked City and they'd be listening to like the Boredoms.
Yeah.
You know?
And like Napalm Death, he told me.
Yeah,
and all
yeah.
that shit.
And it would, and so that's how like Soilent was. It was really this obscure thing within the scene, but it was like a lot of people really dug what Soilent was doing. You know, I mean, I was into a lot of the shit they did.
Yeah.
And then like I got in and I was able, you know, to become part of it. And it was just like you saw, and that's why I was like the raising the bar thing. It's like you get in this band and these dudes are just like, yeah, this is what's going on. I'm like, oh shit, I need to like level up here. You know, I need to go from the Cookie Monster to add some other elements to this shit.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, because the Cookie Monster vocals of Paralysis, I mean, it's like really like guttural and deep, and like with Soilent, like you're all like your range is fully displayed.
Yeah, and then I started like, because I was into, so there was this band Righteous Pigs that we were all into. This guy Joe Caper sang for him, and he had more of just, it was just like a blunt hardcore voice.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, you know, rudimented with the influence of like Peter Steele from Carnivore and like the first Typo record with the kind of yelling voice.
Yeah.
So that's what like Joe Caper was too as well. It was like this yelling blunt voice. And I was like, you know, you can hear it on Pussy, so that was like my early stages of trying to like project that kind of style.
Yeah.
But I was like, yeah, since Soilent has all this shit, I'm gonna put in like a Cookie Monster voice, this high voice, this fucking like hardcore voice, and I'm gonna have some of these like talking voices on shit.
Yeah.
Because I was like, they got all kind of shit going on. That's how I level up. I'll do a bunch of different shit to this.
Yeah, because I can tell you, like, as a 17 and 18-year-old teenager, you know, from outside of New Iberia, a place called Delco, Louisiana, I mean, I was like, ain't no way this is the same fucking dude. And I would learn. I was like, damn, bro, it's all vocals, you know.
Yeah. And then,
Louis Falgoust II. And I was like, wow.
And then, let's say 2024, and we return to doing it, and I'm going, holy shit, I painted myself into a fucking corner. Because not only did I write all these fucking words, but I had all these different fucking styles I was doing. I was like, I gotta get in shape.
Yeah, dude. I mean, yeah. An early episode I recorded with Scott Leger said that Scott said that he learned a lot from you.
Yeah,
And
Scott's great, man. Like I remember coming across Shroom in the early days. You know, it was Audie from Acid Bath and shit, but Scott, and I was like, wow, I like this dude's vocals. He's got some sick shit fucking he's doing, man.
Yeah, and he paid a lot of homage to, you know, how you approach your songwriting as far as like putting that much of content into like that small of a riff.
Yeah.
So
I do remember him asking me like, it's funny because in the early days too, I couldn't really explain what I was doing. And when people asked me, I was like, I kind of just do it. Like I can't explain it. Like I didn't really I didn't have the words or like the head to like explain things with it. I still don't to somewhat extent. I have learned a lot more terminology within music, especially like recording albums, you know, with like earlier days with Keith Falgoust, with Eric Rutan, with Jared Pritchard. You know, you start to learn more terminology because like you'll be in the studio too and you're trying to explain something and they're going, what the fuck are you talking about? I'm like, I'm trying to explain how I want this to sound, but I don't have the terms to kind of explain it. But then you learned it and then you can explain it to them and they'd be like, oh yeah, okay, I understand what you're saying now.
Right.
You know, so there was this progress of learning like the musical aspect, not only like working around people that played really well, but also people that recorded and had a good ear and was like presenting things. Like they had a specific terminology to things, and when you would try to explain them in a primitive way, they were just like, I don't understand what you're saying. I don't get what you're saying. But it eventually unfolded, and I kind of like learned that aspect as well.
I'm really curious about the recording process as a vocalist. I mean, especially coming from you, because I've always been interested in how many takes it would take you to do a song like, I don't know, like Build Fear, because it starts off, you know, you're just talking, basically, like carrying a tune, and then all of a sudden you just belt in to that high pitched scream, and like you just from there, the song just fucking takes off like a goddamn roller coaster, you know, on nitrous.
So first thing is the earlier days of recording, when I started doing that with Soilent, the person that was involved with the recording was like, so we go through the song and I would do it, and he goes, you got some like different tones, and like this voice is a little higher than this voice, and he goes, why don't we do each voice on a track? And I was like, what? And he goes, like, we're gonna go through the song and you do that one voice, you do all the stuff for that voice, then we're gonna come back through the song. And I was like, that's weird. It feels like it's like it's broken up,
right?
You know, but they wanted to do it that way because then that track would have a solid level, this track would have a solid level, and you can meet all the levels instead of the vocals changing, and then you would have to change it. At that time I was like, I guess, you know. So I recorded a bunch of things like that. When I got to Rutan, I was like, so when I did Soilent, I had to go. He goes, what do you have to do? I had to do different vocals on different tracks. He's like, we ain't got to do that. We don't have to. I was like, really? He's like, yeah, no. He goes, just do what you got to do, and then, you know, we can put an automated thing on it to raise it in the mix if one vocal seems lower than the other.
Yeah.
You know. He goes, they're not going to be the same. They're different tones. So generally, certain ones will be higher or lower. And he goes, well, yeah, you could automate that and shit. I was like, oh shit, okay, cool.
Damn.
So then I could like go through the song and do it. I never did no one takes. Like, there was no. I mean, maybe in the early days when you went to the studio and it was like $150 and you had like 4 hours to get this shit done.
Right.
You're just like, this is it, going. That sounds a little weird. Too bad. It's good.
It's
Put
too
this
bad.
shit up. I mean, you can listen to a lot of old records that are like that.
Oh yeah.
You know, where you're like, yeah, he didn't quite say that, but it's like in the lyrics. But yeah, because of budgets then. It was like, you got this much time to do this shit, let's get it done.
Let's get it done.
And usually vocals predominantly were done at the end of a recording. Like they would do all the instruments first.
Right.
Now, in the earlier days though, they did do like live shit too.
Yeah.
Like everybody's just playing, everybody's isolated in a section, and then it's mic'd up, and then you just roll. Because I remember doing, I think there was one Paralysis demo we did like that, and I was like in a hallway, and then other dudes were in the room, but they were like sectioned off with those little like walls that they have like in recording rooms. But then as time went on, it was like, okay, we go in. It was like a day of getting drums set up, drum tones, record drums with a scratch guitar track. Then when all the drums are complete, come in, do all the guitar tracks, then do the bass track, and then, oh, okay, well, now we can start on the vocals, you know. And then usually the time's really limited, so it's like you got this many hours or this many days to do the vocals, and that's it.
Yeah.
You know.
Was it?
So
okay.
there was that, and also there was a thing. I do procrastinate things sometimes, but also sometimes I overwhelm myself with work
Yeah.
and stuff, and so then I wouldn't get things done, and I'd get in the studio and I'd still be writing shit. I mean, it was like that on pretty much all the records I did.
Really?
You know? Yeah, because I had, like, I worked a job 40 to 80 hours. Sometimes I had two jobs.
Yeah.
You know, I did two jobs for a little while where I was working like 80 hours a week. Go to a rehearsal room at night sometimes, or somewhere in between, rehearse, get an idea for the songs. But I'd be fucking tired, and I'd just be like, whatever, and I'll, you know, maybe at work I would think of something, I would jot it down. So I would always be jotting down things, and I had some things in place here and there. But then I'd get in, I'd be like, shit, I don't have everything done. So then I would just sit down and just be like, I would just crush it, like be like, okay, let's go, we got to get this done, we got to do these things.
Well, that explains so much, because I remember, like, you know, on a personal level, I asked you, I was like, dude, it's like, you know, before, I think it was in the early days of meeting you, and I was like, it's like, Ben, I was like, man, I'm a huge fan, and you don't know what Deleted Symphony did for me as a person. I was like, I wanted to know, like, like what was like the background story on one of the songs. You're like, dude, I don't fucking know. And like I thought you were really fucking with me at the time, but like, no, okay, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. The dude was fucking working, you know, two jobs, making ends meet, and then I gotta put some work in too with the band. So
Yeah,
you just came up with things, you know, on the fly.
Well, and people are probably like, well, why were you working so much? Well, like, I put a lot of money into the bands too. Like,
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. So, like, I loved playing. I don't want to make it sound like past tense. I love playing. And
Yeah.
I love touring. So, I was like, also, we need money because, you know, we didn't have a label.
Right.
Or we didn't have some kind of support to hit the road. I was like, so I'm going to just work a bunch. And, I mean, whatever, I have an apartment. I have to pay for the apartment. But we need money to kind of kickstart things. And so I would just work and I would save money. And I would just utilize it to get merch made and stuff like that. And of course, you know, it would roll back. You know, sometimes, it didn't roll back. Sometimes we didn't break even. You know, it's part of the business. It's part of how things operate.
When was that first moment, like as a touring musician, where you felt like the band had like arrived? You know, it's one of those, or like are you like, you're like, hey, shit, or on a personal level, like, oh shit, I made it.
Well, I don't remember the specific tour, but there was a tour where I was like, by the middle of it, I was like, holy shit, all the shit's paid off. Like the merch, this, and we're still doing shows, and we still have merch to sell, so money's coming in to pay for gas. I was like, we won't go home with like nothing or like negative. I was like, this is fucking awesome.
Yeah.
This is awesome to get to this point.
Yeah.
And I was excited the first time, like, the band, like, so the band bought a trailer, like, as a whole. Because
Yeah.
we took some money aside from shows and put it on the side until it built up, and then we bought a trailer together, you know? And we're like, damn, this is like, we bought this together as a band. This is fucking awesome.
Yeah.
You know, we did these things, and we took a little money and put it aside each time and built like a little savings with it, and then we purchased this fucking trailer, which was great.
And
So it wasn't like, I never had like this made it moment, but
Yeah.
I had these moments where like, oh shit, we leveled up here. We were able to pay for things, and everything's covered. and we might come home with a little money afterwards,
Fucking
which
A.
is cool, you know. Because I would always, my head was always like, make enough money because you're gonna be, and also I was lucky because my job would let me leave and come back.
Yeah.
You know, I was always lucky like with that, but I would always go, okay, I'm gonna be gone. I might not make money. I have to make this much money to cover this month that I won't be here. And then also need money to cover these things too. And then that's when like credit cards became an objective, because you're like, okay, well I could just use the credit card and then the payment's not due for 30 days, so I can order these shirts, you know, and boom, there you go. You can get that and then use a credit card for gas, build that, and then be like, all right, cool, and I can just pay the credit card when I get home because we have the money for this. So you kind of like had that, like, I'm sure that comes from my dad as well, the accounting aspect.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the merch into things, because I've been thinking about, you know, how I was gonna segue this next question, but as far as the art, like all the concept that Soilent used, and even in, you know, days of Goatwh, like what are some of the artists that you always want to incorporate, like the original artworks into, you know, album covers, and, you know.
So like Soilent's, a lot of the visionary stuff with Soilent is from Brian. Brian was a big vessel in that. Like he liked to like take and cut up like images. I mean, that's how they used to do flyers too when we were younger.
Yeah.
Cut up stuff. You go to the copy place, make some copies, paste things together, put the logos on, you know, Kinko's, whatever, any kind of joint like that. Go there late at night because they were open 24 hours. Put this little thing together with a glue stick, then make copies of it. You know? And so Brian was really into that aspect, and that's, you know, like with A String of Lies, Somehow Secrets, and his vision was this artwork that was totally different than what the music was. A different like approach, like this like beautiful, elaborate looking artwork, and then all of a sudden you have the ugliness of what
It's just a huge contradiction.
Yeah, he was. He's always had like a really good head with that shit, and then it like his thing influenced me when I started to work on things, like when I started to have the ability to work on stuff and things like that. And then that would travel over to like Goatwh. There would be elements of things, and then I would take those ideas like, oh, what if you took old woodcut artwork and you took this piece and then you combined it with this piece, and then so I was kind of doing that kind of idea with that. But then, you know, we have friends like Jordan Barlow that we came across, and they could actually execute the idea far better than I could do it.
Yeah.
You know? And I'd be like, all right, you know, let's do this. And I never wanted to restrict Jordan either. I would always be like, there's this idea we want. This is the idea, but you don't have to stick to it. This is the basis. You go. You're the artist.
Yeah.
You run with it and, you know, make it happen. And he'd be like, he'd send like a sketch out and he goes, what do you think of this? That's great. That's going, you know. Like you had an idea in your head, but I didn't want him following the idea to a whole.
Yeah.
Because it's an artistic ability. I didn't want to feel like he had barriers.
Yeah.
I wanted to let him go. Like, this is my idea, but you're not restricted. And this is just a small example of my idea from my head, because I'm not going to give you the entirety, because I don't want you to replicate that in a sense. I want it to be you, you know. So, you know, he would put that together, and I would come up with certain things and kind of present them to him, and he would fucking roll with it. Like, I don't have that artistic ability. I have an eye for like laying things out and putting things together like that, but I don't have that ability. Like, his ability to draw and paint and everything he does is phenomenal. You know, as well as other artists, you know, I've kind of come across that we've used. And but I do have like ideas and stuff that I can kind of do. And also, I'm back to the earlier days, I couldn't verbally project my ideas well either. I had to find the right terms. And then, you know, as I came across paths of like real artists, you know, and learned terms, then I could explain things a little better on how I wanted things to look, the idea behind them, you know, and aspects like that. You know, and I've come across So like misanthropic illustrations. We used
Yeah.
him. He was really great. And he was really cool with stuff. And that was another thing. I went to him with certain things, and some stuff he was like, "Do you want to give me an idea? Or do you want me to roll with something like based off of a song?" And sometimes I was like, "I have a small idea, but I want you to build off of it." Or, "Yeah, I want you to create an idea off of a song.
Yeah.
And these are the songs, these are the lyrics. You pick one." So, I mean, some people are weird with artists. Like, this is what I wanted. And I understand people have a vision, but artists too have this unique ability. And I like when you just let them roll with it, in a sense. And, sometimes it doesn't work, There's some pieces I got and I was like, this doesn't quite fit, and they'll be like, okay, well, we can change it. We can shift it,
Yeah.
Because the process was everybody was cool with each other. We were going over it. It just didn't go to that path quite right. But majority of the time it went to the path really good.
Yeah. I feel everything you said about Jordan is, spot on, because I use Jordan's expertise on 3 different designs, and it's because of your his involvement with Goatwh that I was like, this is the guy. I mean, everything that we have all a lot in common with Jordan as far as like musically and the same interests. That's a kick-ass view, though. I'm just gonna put that in the podcast episode because, yeah. But I digress. How did the relationship with Jordan come to be?
He played in some bands in the New Orleans area.
Yeah.
And he did tattoo work and stuff like that. So it was just being, around people, at shows and stuff like that, and then seeing he does artwork and then reaching out to him and kind of building that relationship with that. And he was a great guy just in general,
absolutely.
Even the music he did was fucking really cool as shit as well. So, but not only that, it wasn't, the thing about it is yes, he's a great artist, like in so many different like facets too, like with just pen and ink,
Yeah.
paint,
Oil painting.
Watercolors. Like his skill is insane.
It's
but
insane, yeah.
outside of that, he's really cultured as far as like literature and things like that, which add to it.
Yeah.
And that's what makes his mind open up even more to like the art and stuff, and having like all these different angles. Because like when I would go to him with something, I'd give him a small thing, and then he'd throw some obscure like literature based or something within some kind of esoteric writing.
Yeah.
Or like some kind of past thing, and he'd go, "Oh, so it's kind of like resembles this idea within this," and I was like, "Oh yeah, okay." And so then it would kind of make me think, and I go, "Yeah, and then what if we did this and we intertwined it a little bit?" And he's like, "Yeah, that's cool too." He's like, "Okay, I get what you're doing." I was like, "Yeah, let's not talk about it no more."
Yeah.
I was like, "I want you to just roll."
Yeah.
And he would go.
I think I've always admired that relationship between Goatwh and Jordan, because it just felt like it was a partnership that just flourished as time went on. With every album cover, with every piece of art that y'all had commissioned him for, everything just leveled up. With every album release, whatever y'all did, whatever piece of merch that he designed, it was great. It's phenomenal, like you said.
Yeah, no, he definitely. Like when we did Blood for the Master, because you know how it unfolds and it's all connected and shit like that. That was like a big thing too, like making something that was unique and had some kind of connection and flowed together.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, he's great to work with, and just generally a fucking awesome human, and like his knowledge with shit is fucking phenomenal too, with like literature and books and shit. It's just, that's what adds to it even more.
Yeah.
Because then it's like, you know, like when people, you know, you see a movie that was based off a book, and people are like, you should read the book because it definitely makes you like build this whole different world instead of watching what this director created as the world for this book.
Yeah.
And it's the same way with him. He's read these books, so he's got these ideas and this imagination in his head that can adapt to the art.
Yeah.
You know,
You're a pretty well-read individual yourself.
sometimes it depends. Actually,
Well, what's some of your, you know, what's some books that really like open up your mind?
Well,
and,
okay,
and,
so
and like you know,
in early early Soilent, when I was in Soilent, and there's songs, you know, like Slap Fuck, Goatwh, you know, songs that some people could tend to dislike per se.
yeah,
For whatever the content is in it. But lyrically, it was, a lot of it was based off of things I was reading. Like I was reading like a biography about the Marquis de Sade, read books the Marquis de Sade wrote, like 120 Days of Sodom and things like that.
yeah,
George Bataille was another one. He did The Story of the Eye,
yeah,
and he did some other books just about like real odd things associated with social relationships and shit like that, you know, really obscure shit. So that played an influence on a lot of writing within some of like Soilent stuff. Like the thing with Soilent, it's funny, like what you mentioned earlier about, you know, asking about the stuff, and I was like, I don't really know. As I get older, I actually do know better about the Soilent stuff, because then everything was so rapid, and like I said, working, rehearsing, going in, getting these ideas together. And with Soilent, everything was always, the lyrics were just like the music. It was a bunch of mixtures of a bunch of different topics, but they all had like a relationship, you know? And it was things I would jot, like I used to jot down things on like napkins and pieces of paper, and they pile up. It's kind of like that movie Memento, but instead of like on my body, it was just random like papers and shit, and just notebooks, write shit down. And then I would go back and I would find different ones that seemed like they were associated, and those would all go together in one. And now that I think about it, I mean, I've never been diagnosed with ADD or ADHD or anything. I mean, when we were kids, they didn't have all that kind of shit.
right.
But in a way, if you really step back, like when I step back and look at it, and then having a little bit more knowledge in life of things like that, it was really like a play of ADHD and all that shit within words, and putting them together and associating them with one concept and tagging them to a song.
Yeah.
You know? So it would be, in one song, would be a culmination of influence of like literature, personal life, things I've seen around me, you know, with friends, or friends in relationships, or friends in drug issues.
I'm not going to mention the name. I'll keep the band member completely redacted from the conversation. But I thought it was really telling, just like how some of the name titles would like kind of cause a stir within the group because of the lyrical content that you were writing down. And it's like that just goes to show just how impactful your words were, you know. Like, I know for me personally, there's some songs like Later Days and her Unsober Ways that just like that I took that shit to heart, you know, like after the fact, you know, like once I got sober, I was like, holy shit, man, there's so much more in depth to these fucking lyrics.
And you know what, too, like during that time, I didn't even drink or anything either.
Yeah.
Like I drank a little bit when I was younger, in the early days of paralysis. I drank here and there, you know, stupid shit like Mad Dog 2020. You know, the worst shit ever.
You're living high on the hog, baby.
Milwaukee's Best, you know, those were those days. That was I mean, fuck, you didn't have money. You're trying to get the cheapest shit as possible.
Right.
A fucking 24 pack of Milwaukee's Best for fucking 4 dudes, cheap as fuck, son. So there was that, but then there was a thing where I got, and I was like, you know, I can't be doing this, and I'm like working and rehearsing and doing I had a lot going on, you know, and I was like, I gotta be more focused. So I was just, other dudes still did shit, smoked weed, you know. drank, shit like that. But I was like, yeah, I'm gonna just focus. So a lot of those lyrics were just me and in pure form mentally of a lot of things that were happening around me that influenced that writing.
Yeah.
You know? And like I said, there was no one song is one specific thing.
Right.
You know.
Right.
And I have another friend, Eric, who's really into like the lyrics, and we talk about the shit. And Patrick too, you know. And he was like, "Where'd you come up with that shit? Where did you come up?" And I was like, "It's just a culmination of like I would basically plagiarize myself. It was all these little things I jotted down, and then I would go back and dig through them and take pieces of them.
Yeah.
You know, and just notebooks filled with things, but not just like, okay, I had like 8 lines written in a notebook. Those 8 lines won't end up in one song. It'll be like these 4
Yeah.
different songs, because I felt like those lines fit the subject matter of whatever I was writing, in a sense that was a culmination of a bunch of different fucking odd things going on. So that's why I say it's like, it reminds me of like a controlled yet uncontrolled version of utilizing ADD, ADHD, you know, to create something.
Yeah.
You know,
And I would go on and venture to say that you, like, any audience member, like, ADD would definitely benefit you to listen to Soilent Green because of all the fucking like riff changes and tempo changes and shit. It's like, whoa, wasn't ready for that.
But do you know what's funny? Because like you, like Patrick, like Eric, and whoever else who's really into it, there's people either really like Soilent,
Yeah.
or they don't like it.
Which is
There's no like in between, like, yeah, they kind of like, it's like, no, you really like Soilent. Like, who, let's see, Patrick, who else? Like Lonnie and Mickey Lagrange?
Oh yeah, Lonnie.
They're fucking like, you know, really into it. Eric, like I said, Eric, he would ask me, and he would be like, Eric would be like, dude, I touch with what you wrote here. Like, he's like, how did you like, I was like, I don't really, like, I still don't know how I touched on that, but I guess too, what happens is that's when you find out we're all humans and we all end up having some point in our life where we associate with that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Even, you know, think of like whatever, Foo Fighters or whatever, and people that are connecting with those lyrics or whatever, and like, I connect with it because of this, you know, and it brings me back to a point in life. Well, we all connect with some element of it as well. Just like Eric, he connects with an element of it as well, and he's like, I was like, it was a point in time and I jotted it down and then I incorporated it. So it's not like, I mean, I appreciate the praise, but also you could easily write down a thing one day when you're in the midst of something. Eric could write down something one day, but I guess maybe it's because I'm in the position where I get to vocally present it after I kind of write it as well. But we all have these same kind of like emotions or ideas in our head. It's just that I actually put it down and then I put it to music.
Yeah.
You know?
And like you present it in a fashion that, you know, most metal aficionados you could only dream about, though. Like, I mean, seriously, man. Like,
but also it was a tendency. Like, I had this thing in my head too, where, especially with Soilent, you don't repeat anything. No choruses, no verses, nothing repeats.
Yeah.
Everything's just a long fucking journey into fucking erratic behavior. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like,
man.
Just and mixed up, you know? Like, dude, I remember the song, I remember this big time. Song, It Was Just an Accident. That title came from, I was sitting somewhere, I don't remember the specific place, but there was this girl who was a friend of ours, and there was another guy, and something happened in the relationship. And she goes, and she was kind of crying. She goes, I just don't understand. It was just an accident. And I was like, it kind of like stuck in my head.
Yeah.
It was just an accident. And I was like, this is cool. And then I started thinking of like different ideas of revolving around, like, it was like just that one line can make every person in the world think about something that happened, it was just an accident.
No shit.
From everything,
Yeah.
to a relationship, to an accident on the highway,
Yeah.
to you fall down the stairs, or you trip on something. It was just an accident.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But it's like relatable to so many fucking things. So you could just pour a bunch of different like erratic ideas into that, just basis off of that.
Yeah,
But I remember just sitting there, and I was just sitting there, and she was bugging, and then she goes, "It was just an accident." And I was like, "Wow, that." And I took, of course,
Yeah.
I found a little whatever piece of toilet paper or something, and I wrote it down.
You write on toilet paper?
I write on napkins and bars.
Well, that I
I'd
mean
be
that
at
I
a
can,
bar, and it comes up, and I'll take a napkin, and sometimes I just had the pen in my pocket just because I got used to, like, if I was somewhere, or I'd have to ask them, "You have a pen behind the bar?" "Yeah, I got a pen. Can I borrow for a little while?" "Cool." And some of them would just roll, and I just start writing them down. I'm not sure, but I still might have a bunch of those little napkins and shit with shit written down on it. Because like
Whoa.
I said earlier in our discussions that I'm sort of a hoarder in a sense.
Yeah, but it's all the best shit. There ain't no fucking garbage, that's for sure.
Well, there was garbage, but I got to clean it out.
Oh, that's
recently,
good.
So. But I still haven't got to the good shit yet, so I had to clear the garbage out first. But yeah, so everything was like mixed up and jumbled like that, So that yeah, I mean, it was just a different thing. And,
Yeah.
And like I guess I did have some restrictions, like I would tell myself, no chorus, verse, chorus, And even when like early Goatwh, there was, besides like Invert the Virgin,
Yeah.
we did that, but a lot of the songs were just straightforward, just a lot of lyrics. And then later on in Goatwh, I got to where I was like, I think I want to try this, like with songs like When Steel and Bone Meet and things like that, where it came back around and it was like a chorus, verse, chorus type idea.
Yeah.
But most of it was still basically just a long line of fucking esoteric, fucking dark, crazy shit just kind of put in there. And I would do a lot of, like, with Goatwh, I would add in like tongue-in-cheek shit, like biblical tongue-in-cheek shit mixed with like dark arts type shit.
Right. Right.
So I would kind of like variate with things like that. And then then later on I would start to get like more into deeper topics, more based on like shit like, Milton's Paradise Lost, stuff like that. Like I've used Milton's Paradise Lost with Goatwh on a few records because like somebody would say, well, why would you did it before? But I also felt like as a person that ages and then you start to see different angles of things, my concept of like what I thought when I was younger about it to what I was 12 to 20 years later was different.
Yeah.
So then I wanted to write about it in that approach. It was an influence, but the approach and attack was different on writing about it because I saw it in a different light, in a sense.
Whenever you started getting with the guys in Goatwh, I mean, yeah, you just mentioned that the songwriting took on a little different technique. Did you make it a point like just to stick with certain themes? Did you draw more from personal experience with Goatwh, or was like something that more so that was read, something that influenced you more than anything else?
Yeah, it was. When I first got in, it was things that were read. I wasn't fully like I was into like shit like esoteric shit, reading, and dark art stuff, but I wasn't really versed, on it. So I had to kind of dig deep with it, And I mean, Sammy's always been into wicked shit, so it's just like all right, gotta raise the bar here because we got to make this shit like this. So it was. In the earlier parts, it was like that, like Necronomicon, Satanic Bible kind of fucking aspect.
Did you ever practice anything like that?
I never practiced.
Okay.
I was just really into reading and the concept of it. Like, I was really into a lot of like ideas of different religions and belief systems.
Mm-hmm.
It was always intriguing to me, but I never really held to like one.
Yeah.
I mean, I was raised, Protestant, whatever. I went I did the whole, went to catechism and all that kind of shit. But I always asked a lot of questions because a lot of those stories, you know, biblical stories, I was like, well, why was this or why was that? And the guy was like, well, you have a lot of questions. I was like, it's just interesting, you know, like there's got to be more to this, you know?
Right.
And like later on, you know, even I delve like, so even with like angels hung from the arches of heaven, you know, the idea behind that record stemmed from the human element and the human emotion that isn't associated in the Bible. Like you had these stories, but where is the actual like the human like? So when, you know, Judas betrayed Jesus.
Yeah.
Okay, back then, the idea of, you know, the whole idea idle hands is the devil's playground.
Right.
I mean, there was a lot of idle hands back then because
No shit.
you didn't have cell phones, you didn't have shit. You know, people had a lot of fucking mental time. What went on in a person's head that basically felt like they betrayed someone they were close to? You know, and that doesn't just go for that. That can go through for anybody. You know, like what's that aspect? Where is that aspect in the Bible? Where is the aspect of Cain and Abel's argument in the Bible? Like, why did Cain kill Abel? He didn't just haul off and be like, yeah, I'm fucking this dude up. Something happened, and there was a conversation that ensued that made motherfuckers go, you're gonna die.
Yeah.
This is gonna get to this point, you know, and he kills him with the ass of a jawbone, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, the jawbone of an ass, the ass of a jawbone.
I was like, wait, what?
The jawbone of it. Well, in some stories, everything's different. So all these stories change depending on the religion, the belief, and stuff. So, but anyway, the jawbone of an ass or whatever, or you know, I think some of them say some of them had an axe, maybe.
Yeah.
But so I was like, a lot of ideas for angels hung from the arch of heaven came from this idea of like, where's the human element and emotion? It's a story, but I mean, we read books. There's a lot of books that show you a lot of emotion and a lot of a human element of like you can connect with. It isn't there. There's more to it. There's more to the story.
Yeah.
You know. So I started to delve into that kind of aspect with like angels hung from the arches of heaven.
Was there? I mean, I know there's a lot of, you know, extreme metal acts that always kind of regurgitate some of the same, you know, subjects.
Well, yeah, I mean,
you know, like
with everything,
like Aleister Crowley type shit. You know.
Well, yeah, because
and even like Lovecraftian.
You come to a plateau,
right?
And that's why, like, I didn't want to get caught in the. Okay, here the redundancy. I mean, we have our tongue-in-cheek songs, you know, like FBS, you know, Apocalyptic Havoc, you know, that are more like it's traditional, like satanic metal type shit.
Yeah.
Lyrics sort of on a basic level, you know, key hits on it. You know, who needs a God when you've got Satan? Shit like that.
Yeah.
You know, we have like things like that, but then we have other ones where it's a little deeper aspect. You know, where it's like. So we did have that variation where we could still bounce away from it and go to something more, a little bit thought-provoking, per se. So, and also, honestly, it was like it's kind of like the idea with Soilent as well. Sammy would write songs that were more rooted in a more traditional, easier, simple way. And then he'd have more songs that were a little bit more technical. Yeah. And so then that's how I would write lyrics, like basically. I was like, yeah, this song feels more traditional and more primitive. So I'm gonna just go more with the primitive style. Yeah. And then I was like, this song's a little deeper sounding, like the way he wrote it. So I'm gonna go a little deeper, lyric wise, into the aspect of it, you know. So I never wanted to hit that plateau because it's not just with that, with any kind of subject you want to sing on. If you just want to stay in that kind of area, you get to an area where it's just like, yeah, where do I go from here?
Right.
Where can I go without repeating the past stuff? Or if I do repeat it, like I said, the Milton's Paradise Lost influence, you got to view it in a different angle.
Yeah.
What's like, when you're looking at it, what do you see from it at this age that you didn't see when you were 17?
I think I love the fact that Goatwhore albums are, I mean, as evil sounding, whether it's the riffs or the latest case with Angels, how there's some atmosphere created, but it's all evil and it's all fucking just straight up punishing. Like if there's one consistent theme throughout Goatwhore's discography, it's that it's punishing, it's a fucking good time, depending on who you ask and depending on who's in the audience. You know what I'm saying? It's always been a great time, and to be, a part of that, behind the scenes, and just whether being on tour with you guys or just hearing the finished masters from that album with y'all, it was just like, fuck, dude. It's like y'all have traditionally 10 out of 10 times just always like level up, like you said, like with every release, and that's something that nobody can half-ass it in the band.
I think too that's it's a culmination of you're getting older, younger bands are coming out, and you're like, yeah, we can't get soft now,
right?
It's like you got to stay up to pace with the younger ones too. And then just the idea of like, I still love that kind of shit. I still love the aggression of it, and Sammy loved it as well, Zach, everybody loved the aggression of it. So
yeah,
I think that's that element, and also the element of, getting older and then seeing the younger bands and being like, I can't get soft on this. I got to stay up to pace.
Yeah.
I got to keep on with it. Not in a competitive way, but in a way of being like, we're still in the mix.
Just keeping y'all sharp.
We're in the mix still. Yes, we might be 20 to 30 years older than you, but we can still do this.
Fucking A. I mean, one of the hardest, if not the hardest, tours. I can't even talk right now. But everyone has labeled Goatwhore like the ultimate blue collar metal band, and there's there's a lot of truth to that. Y'all guys have just nonstop putting in the work, whether it be writing, rehearsing, touring, and staying sharp.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason that may be, is just, that's why I think, the audience that favors you guys are fucking rabid. That's just from what I witnessed anyway.
Yeah. No, they're great. I mean, I talk to people at shows and stuff, and you meet a lot of interesting people and their stories about, it's not just like somebody comes up and like, I'm such the biggest fan, but I'm like, okay, you're a big fan, but why? Like, where did this start? Where did this come from?
Yeah.
Like, I want to know the aspect of it. Like that. I got to a point where I was like, I think when I get on a stage still, I still have that kind of like anxiety, butterfly type feeling.
Really?
Yeah, I still get that. And I told myself, I said, I feel like if I never have that anymore is when I need to stop.
Yeah.
But I think too, what involves is that I do come across people that are really into it, and you go, wow, I'm doing something that someone else that doesn't even know me appreciates, and they love the impact of it. Like, I love the impact of things when I was growing up, and I was like, I'm actually like doing something that impacts a person in a sense, which is, it's kind of crazy when you like stop and really think about it. You know? Like I met a little girl in Florida. She was with her dad at the show. Little young girl. And she told me she was a huge fan. She had a little fucking vest on with patches and shit. And she told me, she goes, her father informed me that her mother passed away.
Oh shit.
And she told me that she said, your music helps me get through my mother not being around. Like, I was like,
that's fucking heavy.
That shit hit hard as fuck. And I was like, wow. Like, I was like, this is the reason you do this.
Yeah.
It's not anything else. That makes you go, that makes your head go, this is the reason. this little kid loves the music, and her dad is into metal, and he lets her listen to it, and it helps her with whatever she's going on with her young head about her mother not being there anymore. You know, some people are probably like, Goatwh? Really?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like, yeah, but it's a thing. It's like what I was just telling you earlier when about listening to music and about what thing, is there a specific thing? No, there wasn't, because all of it helped me in some sort of way, like just vent out mentally. And this helped this little girl vent out.
Yeah.
And there's other people that say that, you know, even with Soilent, you know, there's people that are like, yeah, this helps me with this kind of thing. It made me like kind of look at it and just like, that's fucking awesome. That's great, you know.
I'm definitely one of them.
I got to be honest with you, when I was in it, doing it, I didn't think of it in that aspect.
Right.
You know, I'm kind of like writing and thinking of like things that I'm kind of going, would you be into this? And I'm like, yeah, I think I'd be into this. You know, kind of having this conversation with myself, like, write something that you would be into.
Yeah.
You know? But then like I said, we all connect in some sort of way, so there's someone that connects with it. So, but that's the impact of like, holy shit. Like, I will never forget that little girl telling me that. Like, that'll always stick in my head, that moment. Like, and dude, when that happened, I had like a frog in my throat.
I'm sure.
Like I was like,
It's like, how do you respond?
I was like, bro, what? It's like, what are you gonna say? Are you gonna cry right here? Holy shit, better hold back, kid. Better hold back. This little girl just dropped a bomb on you, and she got a straight face.
Yeah.
Stern as fuck, and you about to let out some tears or something, you know?
Yeah.
But you're like, holy shit, you know? And that goes with any band. You know, I'm sure somebody feels that way about, you know, a specific Dark Throne song or Dark Throne record, you know? And somebody would go, Dark Throne? Really? Or just like, yeah, well, somebody connected. And also, sometimes it's what you hear at a point in your life. It's not necessarily what the lyrics about, but it's what crossed your path in your ears at that time of what you were dealing with.
Yeah, you identify, you know, an emotion with a certain sound, and you know, it just takes you away from whatever the fuck that you're going through at the time. And I think that's when I first heard Later Days, like that got me through some fucking serious shit. Like no joke. Like I was like on the verge of fucking suicide, and it kind of like reared me back. Like, well, fuck, you know what? It's not so bad. You know, there's more to go. You know, more to do.
They did. Soilent had like, I've never really been much like a depressed person, but I had a lot of friends. You know, I've lost friends to suicide and shit like that. So I've been around them. So obviously that would get incorporated into writing as well.
Yeah.
You know, I never. You know, I mean, I have down days. I'm not gonna say I'm a fucking happy face every fucking day. I have down days. I have down days as well. You know, days where I'm just like, just let's get through this day. You know. But I mean, I have to admit, I've never had one where I just be like, I don't want to be here anymore because, I don't know, I have in my head, I'm like, if I'm going, somebody's coming with me.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm not going alone. So, but, yeah, I mean, I have down days. But also, I've always been surrounded by pretty solid people, you know. And usually you can reach out to somebody and be like, not generally say, hey man, I'm having a down day, or just like, hey man, what's going on? And usually somebody can say something that's like, yeah, this lightens me up a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, like I feel like it didn't even have to be related to me. If I reach out to a friend and they got something good going on, it like brightens me up.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay, cool. And they kind of say some silly shit. It kind of snaps me out of that like phase. You know, like I don't have this thing like, oh, well, I feel like shit. My friend's doing good. Fuck that dude, you know? I'm kind of like, I basically vicariously go to them to get that source of like pep up in a sense and go, I'm gonna use a little bit of your little upswing right now because I'm kind of just on like a download.
Yeah. I'm the same way, and I think Patrick is too.
Yeah.
Because I remember whenever.
But I don't mean to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
But it's like they say with the suicide thing, like with people, and you know when people post after their friends like recently you see stuff like via Instagram or something, they're like, just always remember, reach out. And it's true, that's the thing. Maybe I was close to something, but naturally I just reach out to people just to, and I don't reach out and say, oh, I'm in a bad mood. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing or anything. You can do that. Let your friend know that you're in a bad spot. But I would reach out because I want to hear the positive thing. And somebody's probably going, you ever reach out to somebody that was more negative than you at that point? I'm like, sometimes that happened. And then I had to dig deep to get us both up.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, I was like, oh shit, he ain't doing too good right now. So I might add some shit to this to maybe help it out.
I'm gonna just go ahead and say it, and I might speak for Patrick as well, man. I know I definitely appreciate the random phone call that I get from you, because like more often than not, I'm doing good, but like there are some choice days. I don't know if like Ben's psychic or not, if he knows like I'm going through some remotely down times, but he's like, how you doing, kid? And I'm like, I'm doing great now.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just, you know what, too, I do that a lot more now, like with all kinds of people I know. Like, I'll reach out and just a random like thing like that, like really close friends and stuff, because in the past I was always so busy, shit wasn't on my mind. It was like, work, go to rehearsals, do this, get on this tour, play all these shows, get to each town, you know, like it was so, and then like I got to a point I was like, man, step back. I was like, reach out to some of your friends sometimes, like just reach out, just randomly, just check in, just for, you know, you did all this shit. You don't have to stack all this shit on no more. You can kind of step back and take a breath, you know. Like I saw a really good quote the other day. It was not the other day, probably like a month or so ago, but it says, you know, it said something about like you always like downing yourself because you're telling yourself you have to do better and do everything, but the real reason is you don't step back and look at your progress because you're always raising the bar for yourself.
Right.
You know? So it's like sometimes you have to stop, step back, take that breath, and look at what you did do, and then you can see, holy shit, I do have some achievements. But if you're always raising the bar for yourself, you never get to see your achievements. You never get to see what you do. You never get to, like, quote unquote, stop and smell the roses per se.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So it's like, I guess I was running so much in the past too that I like now I'm just like, hey, let's notice what's going on. Let's appreciate, you know, this.
Yeah, exactly, man.
Let's appreciate, you know, someone that's close to you, someone, you know, good friends that you've been around, you know, and things, whatever. Your friend has been struggling his whole life and they have this achievement now. Celebrate it with them. You're your friend. You were part of the achievement too.
For sure.
You know? So, yeah, so there's that kind of aspect to things as well. I know I'm sounding like a positive TED talker or whatever, and some of my lyrics do not represent that in a way, but if you dig into the lyrics deep enough, you can find like aspects of that.
Yeah, it's just like, you know, we just lost Ozzy, but if you look clear between those lyrics, man, one could argue that Black Sabbath was the biggest Christian band in hiding.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
Look at, like, I mean, case in point with After Forever on Master Reality, dude. I mean, just, you know, that's some really positive shit.
Yeah, but you know, it doesn't. That's the thing, though. People associate Christianity, Catholicism, whatever, Muslim, Judaism, they associate positivity with it, where everybody associates negativity with like Satanism, dark arts and shit, and it's just like, sometimes it's not that, it's the way you perceive it, the way you look at it. It's not always that, you know? It's kind of like the idea, when you were a kid, you used to watch like Tom and Jerry. They had the ones where they had the devil Tom and the little angel Tom. Yeah. You know, the one yapping. It's kind of like that whole aspect. You know, sometimes it's not. That's your two egos there.
Exactly.
You know, that's all that is your two egos. You have lower ego. And your lower ego is always trying to thwart you, send you off the path in your high ego. So you always got to be on the ball to thwart your lower ego, because it's looking to thwart your higher ego.
For sure.
It's just like a play of egos, you know? So it doesn't, all this other stuff is just lanyard, you know?
Yeah.
There's all this, you know, Christianity, all these different belief systems. That's an individual based thing, you know?
Yeah.
That's why I don't care what you believe as a person, as long as you don't force it. And we're human and we're individuals to each other, and you understand that I'm an individual, you're an individual, we have different beliefs, but we can come to terms on things. We're not going to believe everything equally, but we'll have some things that we do share.
That's right. Shit.